Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Web Hosting Talk webinar. I'm Robert Jacoby, the moderator for today. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at Blackwall, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Artur Grabowski from Extendify to talk about AI-powered WordPress. Artur, let's do a little introduction.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Hey, everyone, thanks for joining. Yeah, so I'm Arthur Grabowski. I am the co-founder of Extendify. So we focus specifically on AI experiences in WordPress, and we'll talk more about that here. And my background is really on the software side of things. So prior to starting Extendify, I worked at a company called Automatic, which is the company behind WordPress.com and WooCommerce. And prior to that, I was working at a company called Adobe, working on creative tools like Photoshop and other web authoring tools.
Thank you, Archer. I got so excited to get going. I forgot to do just a couple of things of housekeeping. One, this webinar will be recorded and available after the fact, as well as we do have a Q&A button in the Zoom. So if you want to ask questions, please hit that, submit questions. If they're timely at the time, I will drop them into Archer directly, but we'll save most of that for Q&A after Archer's session. Alrighty, Archer, what makes you qualified to talk about AI and WordPress?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So a little bit of it is the list of companies that I mentioned where I've spent some time. And so thinking about web authoring from the perspective of the Adobes and then Automatic and kind of being close to the core WordPress and WordPress.com and WooCommerce experience there. And now with Extendify, and I'll share this slide here, which I know is a lot to look at, but essentially this idea of AI first WordPress in the context of web hosting, this is the only thing that we do. This is what we kind of wake up every day thinking about and working on. And our focus is how do we help web hosting providers around the world grow their hosting business through better customer acquisition, customer retention, enabling their users to actually be successful. And we just do this at a very large scale. So essentially on every continent, we are working with the leading hosting providers there and helping them create those really intuitive AI first experiences. But all of it is based on WordPress. Everything we do is built around WordPress, and our goal is to enable those WordPress native experiences in the context of web hosting.
And these are huge names, which I'm sure most people know. Obviously IONOS, Team Blue, and you've mentioned a whole slew of other ones. Uh, Retention, acquisition. What's the number one problem facing hosting companies?
Yeah, I think there is. We continue to be, if we kind of generalize to this idea of the overall experience, we continue to largely see the same types of hosting experiences that we frankly did 10 plus years ago. And so these are kind of these control panel centric experiences where a user comes in, they buy web hosting. Their goal is to build a website, but they get a control panel. And obviously, control panels are super important. They're a key part of everything that we offer to these users as kind of the hosting community. But a user isn't signing up to buy a control panel, they're signing up to have an online presence and to get customers and do that through building a website. And so today we continue to have this kind of panel-centric experience that is oriented around here are the specific things this hosting customer is buying versus the results that they are getting.
Now, I don't want to throw any specific panels under the bus, but are some trying to do better?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And so we are seeing some progress here. And so, this is kind of this like initial experience. And I'll talk about this briefly, this initial experience, even though we want to focus on the AI WordPress part of this. The reality is before someone can get into WordPress to start building their website with AI, they first have to go through this onboarding experience that you as a hosting provider have for the user. And so again, there's the kind of traditional control panel flow, but we have been seeing some improvements, some traction around better kind of panel onboarding experiences. And so there are a couple here on the screen, Panel Alpha and WP Squared from Web Pros. And both are doing a nice job of bridging some of that gap between the kind of traditional panel experience where you still need an admin interface. It's not like we can get rid of this admin interface. So you still need something, but making it more centered around WordPress, around getting users to this initial point of success of getting them in WordPress, getting them started.
Can you just get rid of the panel?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. I think that we see some really good examples of hosting providers who will take a user from the initial purchase of a hosting plan, kind of buy a domain, buy a hosting plan, put them right in WordPress. I think in most cases, getting rid of the panel wholesale is not is not the goal or the answer. Although we do see that sometimes. But I think what these tools like this panel alpha and WP squared do is they give the user, kind of the best of the both worlds. You still have the control of a panel. You still have some of the sort of like, ability to make some of those system changes if you need to, get things configured, but it doesn't put, PHP in your face as the first thing you see when you log in after you've bought a hosting plan.
Oh my God, that's brutal, especially if you have no interest in that and you're like, what is going on? And all the techno babble that accrues with that kind of experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a case where there are some users who are incredibly familiar with panels, but you also have users who just heard about WordPress from a friend who sign up for hosting, wanting to build a website, and they see something like PHP and some of these people can't even spell PHP, and so they are stuck with this experience that's very dated, creates a lot of friction for them. They just want to build a website. They don't want to look at that panel.
And there are products out there doing that, right?
Yes, that's right.
And
That's
I'm
right.
not going to mention like Facebook, which a lot of people think is a website builder.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, there are SaaS solutions that are more proprietary, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so this kind of gets to this point of hosting. Largely, we continue to see hosting providers offer more or less the same kind of experience as we did, 10 years ago. There are improvements, including things like security, right? Some of the stuff, even Robert, you're working on, with Blackwall. There are improvements that are being made, but the experience layer of this looks largely the same. While the competition, in this case, here I'm kind of highlighting Wix and Squarespace, they've obviously moved on. And I'm saying things that I know are clear to everyone that's kind of listening to here, but I think it's important context for talking about why is AI in the WordPress experience important and increasingly becoming the norm for more and more hosting providers that are taking their experience and their hosting business seriously.
Yeah, and you mentioned Wix, Squarespace, Shopify, WordPress. All these experiences, all these product solutions 5 years ago didn't have AI, but
Yeah.
even the Wixes and the Squarespaces of the world had an onboarding experience that was radically different than the panel WordPress experience, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and this was actually part of that origin story for Extendify. So as a little bit more of context, my co-founder at Extendify, Chris Lubkert, and I, we were working at Automatic, the company behind WordPress.com and WooCommerce, and we had this interesting experience there where I think that company is a very product-first company, and it has every person who joins that team do some amount of customer support. Really cool opportunity to just hands-on keyboard, talk with customers, answer tickets, etc. And we really noticed that there was, not just thinking about Automatic, but broadly the WordPress ecosystem, a lack of onboarding, site management, kind of ongoing content creation, etc. for WordPress. The lack of this experience layer, and so that was the real kind of genesis for us to set out and build Extendify and create this experience layer that now powers WordPress for all these hosting providers. Some of these logos that I shared a second ago, and I think that's a good segue to kind of show what the product looks like and do a little bit of a demo.
Yeah, yeah, that's you beat me to the punch because I'm thinking, the previous experience was you get dumped into that white default template of WordPress and,
There it is.
abandoned. Yep, there we go. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
And a lot of people get intimidated or, they're just like, I don't have time for this. Can
that's
you
right.
jumpstart me? So Extendify with AI is doing
Yeah.
that jump starts. I'm really excited to see the demo.
Yeah, exactly. This is WP admin. This is an interface that I'm sure all of us know really well. It has been unchanged for a long time. And, I kind of reflect on my experience when I was at Adobe and we were building, among other things, Photoshop. Arguably, especially at the time, the most powerful creative tool that was out there. And yet, every single time a new user opened up Photoshop, they were starting with a blank canvas. And this was something our team at Adobe spent a lot of time thinking about. Even these experts, they're starting from a blank canvas every time. How do we help them be successful? And certainly for the newbies, right? The newbies that would go in, you've got all these tools surrounding the canvas. How do you get started? What do you do with that? And so there's a similar dynamic here, and certainly for a brand new user who's never used WordPress, they heard about WordPress from a friend or a YouTuber or something. They think they're getting Wix. They end up in WP admin. Their WordPress journey often ends very quickly with a cancellation of their hosting plan. But even those people that do know what they're doing, again, they're starting from scratch every single time. Our goal with Extendify is to have a user go from a host's onboarding experience, not to this, but directly into something like this. This is a white labeled experience. So obviously it's important to continue the kind of onboarding journey from a user buying a domain, buying a hosting plan, continue that into WordPress. This experience, we are in WP admin here already. So this is provisioned through a plugin theme set. So the implementation is very easy. But we are right now, and this is also localized. I'm going to show this in English, but whatever language your customers are in, whatever languages you serve, both the user interface here is localized to that and the end result, the actual website that's created.
And it could be in multiple languages. So,
That's
if it's
exactly
in
right.
IONOS, it could be German and English for.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and so it's very flexible, and we want to make sure that the experience feels very intuitive. Recently we started working with GMO, the largest provider in Japan, and that's hugely important, right? Support the language and localize the experience there. So let me go through a quick example of what an end user actually experiences and does, and then we can talk a little bit about some of the marketing use cases and so on afterwards. But so let's just create a website here. So we are a plant store that sells potted plants mostly for homes. We are based, let's say, in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I am calling in from today. We can give this a tone if we want. And so this experience is powered by our AI agent. And what the AI agent is going to first do here is it's going to kind of read what the user is doing. It's going to take that information and send it back a set of follow-up questions to try to clarify what the goals of this website are. And so the AI agent is also going to pre-select what it thinks are the right answers. Now, if the user wants to change some things, they can, or they can just go with the default because, again, the AI agent does a good job of selecting those defaults. That information is going to get sent to our AI agent again, which is then going to generate websites. I think the really important thing to know here is Extendify does not have templates, does not use templates. Everything in Extendify is created on the fly based on input from the user. And so every user that goes through this experience is going to see different designs, different websites. And importantly, these are not screenshots. So we are live generating and live rendering multiple websites here at once. And this is in English right now. So because we're going through this demo in English, but all of these websites could be in, German, French, Japanese, whatever the case may be. And you can see the content already reflects what we told the system here because we are, again, creating these on the fly. And that's really powerful because it means every single user, no matter what their use case is going to get an experience that feels really personalized to them and also localized to them if the localization is important. I'm going to hit next here, and we're actually going to create the website. What I'll highlight here is Extendify is that AI experience layer on top of WordPress, but under the hood, it is just core WordPress. There's no Extendify page builder. There are no Extendify blocks. We're not vibe coding. We are truly creating a website here with core WordPress. And that has three big benefits. One is speed. So these sites are as fast as WordPress gets because there's no other code running on the pages. It is just core WordPress. Second is compatibility. If a user wants to use a plugin or theme or whatever the case may be, they can because it's just core WordPress. Or even if a user is, maybe wants to then hire a developer later to make changes, that developer is just working with WordPress. They're not learning some other tool. But third, and maybe most importantly, there is no vendor lock-in with Extendify. So let's say you have a hosting business. You want to offer a better modern AI experience to the users, and you use Extendify to create tens or hundreds or thousands of sites over a year or two. And then you decide, you know what, I want to go a different direction. I want to use a different tool. Well, all of these websites are just hosted on your servers. They're just WordPress websites. You can actually uninstall Extendify from this site and everything still works. In fact, if I go to here to edit the page, we'll see we're in the core Gutenberg editor. Every image, every piece of text, every button is editable just in the core WordPress editor. And again, there's no vendor lock-in. You could uninstall Extendify, keep editing the site in the core editor, and everything keeps working. I'll just quickly touch on a question here that I saw in chat. Yeah, everything works in Spanish and many other languages natively out of the box. And so there's, if we were in here, that whole onboarding flow would have been in Spanish, and the website that's created would have been in Spanish as well. Because the system would recognize it's a Spanish site and will make everything in Spanish. In fact, we differentiate between sort of like the Spanish in Spain and Spanish in Mexico. We actually have different versions of Spanish even for those different types of users. Okay, so a user here is in the editor. Even though it is the core editor, we still make this more powerful for the user with AI text generation, AI image generation, AI-based image search, a design library that can help the user quickly add to the site. Again, you can see this placeholder here, host logo. So all of this is branded. So the user continues to understand, hey, I'm getting these really cool tools from my host. And this is really valuable. But let's actually go do something else. Let's go back to this. So this is the first thing that we saw after the site was created. We're on the homepage here. We already saw that this is all core WordPress. Everything's been created here for us, and the user can get in, and they really have everything they need to get started, even a contact form, right? And so Extendify recognized, hey, this business, it would make sense for it to have a contact form. It installed a contact form plugin, generated the form, injected the form onto the page. And so all of that is done for the user before the user touches anything. It's all set up. Now, even though the user could go in the editor and make changes manually in the editor there, we want the user to be able to actually engage with the site as if they were engaging with kind of a developer, their agency, and do as much as possible from the front end here while looking at the front end of their site. So maybe we want to do something like change the colors of this website. Any of you that are familiar with WordPress and full site editing know that this is a global styles change, and it would take a user 3 menus going through WordPress to find global styles. Most users have to find a YouTube video how to do this. We can just go in here, pick a different set of styles, designs, can fundamentally change the look and feel of this website, save that, and move on. That is a non-starter for a lot of new WordPress users. Just making that change. We did that from the front end here. Instantly, the user's done, and we can move on. We can do the same thing with, for example, changing fonts, right? There's lots of these changes. The Extendify AI agent here is capable of making really most of the changes that a user would want on a WordPress website. Again, fonts, typography is buried in WordPress. We can just one-click make that change and move on. It gets much more interesting than that, though. For example, we could use the AI selector here to select parts of the website and make kind of more dramatic changes to this. So maybe we want to do something like make the text more creative and center it, for example. And the idea here is we want the user to be able to engage with this interface as if they really were talking with a person. Natural language. One of the things that's like really common here is we're not forcing the user to kind of engage in a kind of like a technical way where the user would have to use the right terms like heading, subheading, this or that. We just want them to use natural language and just say what they want. Maybe I would want to add another image here, or maybe I want to delete one of these or add another one or change the button, etc. We want that all to just be natural language changes for the user.
So that selector is always active.
Yeah, so the user it's always available. The user can choose whether they're using it or not. Um, um, One of the reasons it's actually not always active, although this is an interesting thing that we're exploring with the product, is because we're on the front end of the page, the user may want to actually click the buttons and engage with the website and navigate it as an end user would. So we have the ability for the user to turn off the selector so that instead of selecting parts of the page itself, they are instead just interacting with buttons and links as if the end user would.
Got it.
Now, one of the things that I'm showing here, and I'll get to some questions in a second. One of the things that I'll mention here is we created a website, right? We in this case I decided to make a one-page website, a simple website. We're done. It's beautiful. We just made some edits. We feel good about this. And then we think, oops, I forgot to make a page, right? And then if we go to make a page from scratch in WordPress, that's daunting, right? You're going in and creating. We watch in our user research. We watch users and are even thinking about users before they can even make a page, they have to go look at another website and think like, hey, what does an FAQ page even look like, right? Before I can start making one. Here, a user can say, hey, create an FAQ page for me, and boom, we're done. That FAQ page is ready for the user. They can publish it. They can just move on. And there's all that kind of like friction of how do I get started, etc. It's all taken away from the user. They can get started right away. I'll touch on one other product element and then I'll pause for some of these questions, just to give you all a broader sense of how we think about the ecosystem of WordPress. So there's obviously WordPress itself and all the kind of stuff you can do with it that's made possible and easier and faster with Extendify. But WordPress is really this kind of ecosystem of plugins and themes and extensible components. So one of the things that we're focused on right now with Extendify is what we refer to as our product platform, which is enabling third-party products through agentic experiences. And so, for example, in this case, as I mentioned earlier, the Extendify agent decided this website should have a contact form and installed a contact form plugin, generated a form, injected into this page, and published it to make it available to the user. Now, what we're working on is if the user wants to edit this form, today we're already taking the user to that experience so they can go in and make edits to a form within that experience. But we're actually going to take this take me there experience further next, where instead of a take me there experience, we're going to then have an okay, just edit for me experience, where it'll be, I want to add a phone number to this form, or I want to do whatever, or I want to make this field required and make that just possible through the product platform work right away. So the user doesn't even have to engage with that product if they don't need to. And then we start to, I think, in a really compelling way, blur the lines between what is core WordPress functionality and what is third-party functionality that we enable through the agent.
So just to clarify, today I can't say add a phone field to my contact form.
That's right. So today the agent will take you to that plugin. Or it could be, so for example, another example is WooCommerce. If this was an e-commerce shop, Extendify out of the box will create a products page, checkout page, cart page. It'll generate placeholder products, inject those into featured product sections on your page. And if you then want to say, I want to add a new product, Extendify will take that user deep into WooCommerce, into the product creation flow so they can create the product themselves. In the future, we expect the agent to do more of that in the agent itself and not even have to take the user to WooCommerce itself.
And just to dive slightly deeper, the user doesn't know or really care about what that form plugin is, correct?
Yeah,
You're curating that in conjunction
we
with
are.
the
That's
hosting
right.
provider.
That's right. And so we're curating the set of solutions for all the kind of like major use cases that a user has. And instead of the user going to the plugin directory and downloading, some unknown form plugin or SEO plugin that maybe isn't very
Making
strong.
a random guess.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Instead of that, we are connecting that user with the right products that we know are secure, supported to be part of our product platform. These products have an SLA, so they have to be on top of any issues, bugs, etc. And so that's right. We're curating that experience to take one more decision out of the user's hands because those users, every decision they have to make, that's an opportunity for them to get stuck, get frustrated, and then churn.
Brilliant, brilliant, amazing.
Uh, should we go through a few of these questions before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, sure. They're coming in fast and furious. There are questions about, fundamentally, is Extendify a plugin?
hmm Yes. So yeah, the quick answer is Extendify is provisioned through a plugin theme set. Yes. And we made this architectural decision because it makes implementation for you, the hosting provider, dead simple. Like, if one of you decided, hey, this product is definitely for me. I want to be live. I want to use this product. You can easily be live with Extendify by the end of the day today. In fact, you could, within an hour, because you're simply, whether it's your control panel or with WPCLI, however you provision sites, you're just pre-installing the Extendify plugin theme set. It's live. That plugin theme set includes a license plugin that is specific to you, which kind of connects these users back to your license. And it's as simple as that. There are no billing APIs, licensing APIs. There's nothing like that that you have to integrate with.
And so, follow up to that question, which I actually have in my copious notes on
Yes.
Post-its. Uh, what happens with, as an end user, if I
hmm
uninstall or if a host uninstalls or however we want to talk about installing or migrating the
Yeah.
site?
Yeah.
What are the copyright issues around the images and
Yeah.
content that's already been generated?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we use Creative Commons images, and all the content is, we don't use any licensed content. Obviously, as everyone's aware, there's lots of conversations about AI generally, but we just use mainstream AI models to power this, both kind of the OpenAI and Gemini family of models. And so, everything is fair use there. And you didn't ask this exactly, but something you said, Robert, just reminded me. I'll just show this on this site. I'm going to deactivate Extendify. So, and then I'm going to go back to this homepage and I'm going to refresh this page. You're going to see two things happen. One is the agent is going to go away, and two, the website is going to look exactly the same. And this comes back to this idea of there's no vendor lock-in.
Love
Again,
it.
you can use Extendify to create thousands of websites. Your customers can use it to create thousands of websites. If one day you decide you don't want to use Extendify, it's 100% core WordPress. And even all the AI stuff that we do, where I was showing, where we're making changes, to parts of the website, under the hood, there's no vibe coding. It is still just core WordPress. There's no spaghetti code. It is all completely core.
And when that plugin is active, I'm jumping down to a question further along.
Yes.
If that plugin is active, does resource utilization change, or you're just getting
Zero.
a
Zero. All of the actual compute logic, AI, everything happens on our end. And there's no other code on these pages. And so there's really no resource load. Whatever shared hosting, VPS, however you're hosting your WordPress sites today, if WordPress runs, WordPress with Extendify will run.
okay? So if you add more content, that's just more content.
That's
Like if
exactly
I
right.
hand coded it on a default WordPress install. Got it.
Exactly right. Yep. Um, okay, so let's maybe if there are any more questions about the product, we can certainly answer those. Um, but maybe let's take a kind of, I'll take a break there quickly. And to bring this to life, talk
Yes.
about what does this mean in practice? When hosts are actually using Extendify, what does this look like? Um, so I'll look at a few examples here, and again, if you have any questions on this, please let me know. So uh, I'll show a few examples of hosting providers that use Extendify and what this means for their value proposition, their customer acquisition. I think we've made it clear what this means for customer retention and engagement and so on. Extendify makes these customers successful. They stick around, improves retention, decreases customer support load because these users are actually successful, able to build something. But in addition to everything that happens after a customer buys hosting, Extendify, it becomes a fundamental part of the hosting provider buying the hosting package from you, signing up from you, and frankly, not going with a Shopify or a Wix or Squarespace or name your other product. So I'll show a few examples. This is IONOS, the largest hosting group in Europe. You look at their language here. Let me translate this to English. Build your website with the AI. We'll take care of the rest. So that's Extendify. Obviously, it doesn't say Extendify. Extendify is white labeled, but build your website with AI. The first language there, right? The first words are, hey, we are going to help you be successful with AI. That is a core of the value proposition they have. HostGator LATAM. Let me translate this to English as well. Create your landing page or whatever other website you want with WordPress. Uh, um, this again becomes, create your website in minutes. This becomes a core part of the value proposition. And what I'll tell you is, and this might apply to some of the folks on this call as well. Occasionally, I will see the sort of a website of a hosting provider that says, build your website easily with WordPress. We all know that it won't be easy, right? But that is the language that you have to use because you want to have a compelling value proposition relative to other tools that are available. So some of you are already promising this thing. It's just we know that it's not fully realizable. And so Extendify helps you realize this vision that you already have for your customers. I'll show a couple more. Your hosting, largest Dutch hosting provider. Let me translate this to English as well. WordPress hosting, everything you need for WordPress. They use a onboarding mechanism where pay just a euro for the first 6 months. But that is more than enough time with Extendify for those users to build their website. I think what's interesting here, this little screenshot you can see that I didn't show this in the demo. This is a mobile view. So you can use Extendify to create websites on mobile, on a phone. That entire onboarding experience, etc. You can create a website in 60 seconds on your phone that it would take a normal WordPress user a week or more to create on a desktop. Um, let's look at a few more. Aruba. This is a largest host in Italy. All of this managed WordPress hosting, AI, right? That is the imagery. That is the vision here that they are proposing. And if we read through this page, that is the core part of its value proposition. Let me switch gears slightly and talk about two other types of use cases and how they take shape. I want to look at DreamHost. So DreamHost, really, really strong WordPress hosting provider. I think they're constantly innovating on stuff. And I think one of the interesting things they've done is in addition to including Extendify in their WordPress hosting, they also have this AI website builder tool. Lift off website builder and launch your website in 60 seconds. And this is, this doesn't talk about WordPress or hosting per se. It's not a featured part of the messaging. This is for that customer that just wants a website and maybe they don't even care what's under the hood, but this is WordPress with Extendify. And so this user, for DreamHost, this is magical because these users are on the same servers. Customer support is supporting the same technologies under the hood, but the DreamHost can meet that user that just wants a website, meet them where they are, and not try to convince them why they should use WordPress. Similarly, here's a host out of Morocco, Ninja Host. Similar idea. Let me translate this to English as well. Launch your website in 60 seconds. This AI website builder, same idea. This is, we're not talking about WordPress here. We're not talking about hosting. We're talking about build your website. And so while Extendify is available to WordPress customers here, it's also available in this separate kind of specific product SKU that is for those customers that just want a website. So I think these are important kind of ways to use Extendify in addition to what you would do with WordPress. And this frees you up to kind of get rid of any proprietary site builders you might use. Probably the biggest kind of example of the issue with proprietary site builders is Weebly. So Weebly was a standalone site builder. We have hosting partners that have tens of thousands of customers with Weebly. And then Weebly was acquired by Square, the payments company, and Weebly is essentially getting wound down. There's been no investment in Weebly. It's slowly on this path to end of life. And what do these hosting providers do, right? They're stuck. It's a proprietary platform. If Weebly is not adding features, functionality, whatever, those customers can't do anything. And if it ever truly gets end of life, then those websites are stuck, right? They cannot be edited any further. And with these hosting providers know with Extendify, hey, we can offer a site builder powered by WordPress and Extendify. And at the end of the day, if we ever want to not use Extendify or anything like that, those sites are on our servers, no vendor lock-in. We can do whatever with those that we want. Let me share just one last example here related to kind of the commercialization. So there are lots of examples of how hosting providers use Extendify, and I won't go through all of them, but there's For example, hosting providers use Extendify to offer really lightweight do-it-for-me services, where a support team at a hosting provider will use Extendify to, in 3 minutes, build a website for someone who's really struggling because some people, no matter how easy you make it for them, they're just allergic to technology and they don't want to build it themselves. But this example here that I'll show you, this is Mind This is another Dutch hosting provider. I'll translate this to English again. They are doing something here where, you want a WordPress site, piece of cake, launch your website in 60 seconds with AI, try WordPress with AI free for 2 weeks. You put in your name, you put in your email address, and you get a WordPress site that you can start building. And then there's a conversion flow to convert those free customers to paid customers. And this is such an impactful part of the flow here that Mind2Mind actually features this as a primary call to action for their customers is to offer free trials. And we have plenty of hosting partners that are now offering free trials for their customers powered by Extendify with WordPress. And it's one of those things that tends to be a little geographical. It works better in some geographies, less well in other geographies. But it's one of those things that you can just very easily test once you have Extendify. The reality is, if you gave people a free trial of just plain WordPress, your conversion rate would be awfully low to awfully close to zero. But with Extendify, you can actually have these customers be successful, convert from a free trial, and continue building. Okay. So that is kind of the commercial part, just giving you an idea of how hosting providers leverage Extendify. Um, and so I'll kind of summarize here, and Robert, I'll pass it back to you after that. The goal here for all of us collectively is to build a modern hosting WordPress experience where a customer can come in, we can offer them upfront something compelling, not, hey, here's what CPU you get, how much storage you get, but offer them a website in 60 seconds. That user, and we see this across our customer base, our customers are pretty evenly split between end users building a site for themselves and agencies or developers building for other folks, and they just want to build faster and better and on core. And so we want to give the users a better value proposition. Once they buy something, we want to get them into WordPress as quickly as possible with as few kind of, control panel or decisions or whatever they need to do. Ideally, just get them into WordPress. And then once they get into WordPress, we want to create a website for them, onboard them, and then continue to help them to be successful with the AI agent and everything they may need to maintain a successful website. And that is the only thing that we do every day. Extendify, all we do is we kind of think about how do we build this AI platform that is going to help hosting providers be successful. And again, as I mentioned before, we do this at a big scale where we create many thousands of websites every day.
Perfect.
Okay, I'll pause there. Um, Robert, I see you're typing answer to a
Yeah,
question.
there's
Yes,
people here, people
that's
there,
right.
people everywhere. Interactive webinar.
Yeah, and the one thing that I'll say, uh, the one thing I'll say here in terms of follow-ups, I have my email here on the screen. If you go to extendify.com, you can also click book a demo, and you can actually schedule a meeting, and that'll be me. I do this meeting myself. I love building relationships with hosting providers, despite all the logos that you saw, and the more than 100 hosting providers that we work with around the globe. I do those meetings myself to get to know the hosting providers and understand what you're doing. And then, so feel free to send follow-up questions there or book a demo, and I'm happy to have that conversation
And you're available disturbingly in person at all the events.
at every
So
event. Yes, that's right. Yeah,
hunt her down.
yeah,
There's a couple actually really good questions here.
yep,
One is about migration. So if I'm an end user and I migrate from a a host that helped me build a site with Extendify,
yes,
if I go to one that doesn't have it, that
yeah.
plugin's still going to come along with your typical migration. What happens to my ability to do anything with that content then?
Yes. So, kind of two parts to that answer. The first part is it's always just a WordPress site. You can just work with it. Like if it's a WordPress site, go in the editor, make any changes, install any plugins. It's just a WordPress site. Extendify will never prevent you from doing any of that. With many of our hosting providers, they have their license set up such that if you move your site away from them to another host, the Extendify AI agent will turn itself off. And
Oh, okay.
so you may not be able to use the agent anymore, but you will continue to edit the site as if it was a WordPress site. So again, that lack of vendor lock-in is a core principle that we build based on, and that means that user can treat it as their own WordPress site no matter where they take it.
And if I migrate my site to a host
Yeah.
that has Extendify, will Extendify magically appear and allow me to
Yeah.
fix things?
Yeah, and that's an evolving kind of part of our roadmap actually. So if a user migrates to a host that offers Extendify, that host chooses whether to offer Extendify to existing customers or not. So you can that's a strategic decision that you as a hosting provider make. And if you do offer Extendify to those customers, you would you wouldn't offer the onboarding piece, right? Because that user has, if they're migrating a site, they have a site, they don't want to overwrite their site. So that part is you wouldn't want to do, and you don't want to do anything destructive to destroy what they have. The all the kind of AI editor tools are available to a site, even if it's an existing site, if the host provides Extendify to them and installs Extendify on their site. And one of the big things that we're focused on as well is making the AI agent compatible with more types of sites. The AI agent is prioritizing, we're prioritizing our development on sites created with Extendify, but as time goes on, we're expanding that compatibility to more types of sites created in different ways.
So yeah, if I used some other page builder,
That's right.
then in the future, Extendify will be able to actually
Yeah, and our
work
focus
with
is
that and
the
fix those
reality
page
is
builders problems.
that's exactly. I mean, the reality is with page builders is like, listen, if you're a host and you have a customer and that customer has created 100 sites with Elementor, they're going to make their 101st site with Elementor, and Extendify will do nothing to block that. Our goal is not to prevent, we don't want to prevent successful users from being successful. We want to help the users that need help, want to either can't do it themselves or just want to do it faster or do it better. We want to help them. And so we're never going to do anything to prevent a user from using some tool.
Perfect, perfect. There is a more technical question about integrations with cPanel versions. Does that really matter?
It doesn't matter. So there are some native panel integrations that um, can make implementing Extendify a little easier. So if you're using WP Toolkit, especially on Plesk, or if you use, WP Squared or Panel Alpha, as I mentioned, they can make setting up Extendify easier. But what I will also say is because Extendify is just a plugin theme set, and essentially every hosting partner we use is just pre-installing Extendify on every site because they want every customer to be successful. You can do it many different ways, and probably the fastest is to run a WP CLI script so that when you're installing WordPress for a user, you just pre-install the Extendify plugin theme set for that user, and then Extendify is there when the user logs in. So yes, there are some kind of panel, integrations you can do, but you can also just do it using WP CLI, which frankly usually installs plugins faster than the panels do. So it's up to you. It's very flexible. What you really don't need is like a WHMCS or billing integration because again, pretty much every hosting partner installs Extendify for all their customers. So there's not like a separate billing flow or licensing flow that you need to solve for.
Yeah, that good that you hit on that because there was a question early on about, what's the licensing, but I
Yeah.
assume that's one of those things where call Archer and he'll walk you through it.
That's right. And really, that license lives at the host level. And so there are some different packages that we have depending on your scale, but that license is at the host level. And so then when you're provisioning it for users, you're just pre-installing that plugin theme set with your own license plugin. What you're not doing is provisioning like an account on our server or whatever, which would dramatically increase the complexity. You don't have to do any of that.
Um, I got a question to
Please.
put you on the spot, Archer. This has been
Yeah.
all easy, uh, and it's not in your deck, I don't see.
Yeah.
What's the what numbers do you have on acquisition and retention improvements when Extendify has been deployed?
Yeah, so I mean, I will say it varies depending on the type of customers you have, right? The more migrations you have, the less, the less you need help with user onboarding. If you have more new customers, it's more, but it's double digit. I mean, it's very meaningful. And so we see more than 10% improvement in retention and activation kind of generally, but depending on your use case, in some cases we see much higher numbers. So we've seen For example, one metric we look at is like week one activation. So like within the first 7 days, how are users being activated? And we've seen some hosting providers that are in particular targeting small businesses. Week one activation rate doubles, like not like 5% higher, like 2x. And so it depends. Versus like if you're mostly a host that primarily is doing migrations, like 95% of your customers are migrating over, well, they don't need help getting started and they already have some tool set, et cetera. That impact there is going to be smaller. I'm sure that's an obvious point to make, but I'll just make that. But yeah, we expect double-digit impact on activation retention. But what that actually doesn't even capture is I was kind of when we first started building Extendify, we were very focused on activation and retention, and we continue to be. But but then what we realized is once hosting providers started changing their messaging and kind of their value proposition to customers to that, build your website in 60 seconds, you don't get hosting, you get a full, online presence, what I was showing in some of those marketing examples, Extendify started having a meaningful impact and again, often a double-digit percentage impact on customer acquisition. And so all of a sudden, the host wasn't just acquiring their old school shared hosting customers, they're acquiring people that just want a website, want an online presence. And so that part is also important to keep in mind as you're thinking about not just retention, but also just growth, revenue growth, the acquisition part of this is also important.
No, that's fantastic, and I'm glad to hear that. I mean, that was sort of my expectation,
Yes.
just because it's such a valuable tool set, on top of WordPress, open source. You can do,
Yep.
all that magic. Uh, yeah, I'm not seeing any more questions on that. Uh, are there any like sort of kind of final things you want to leave our audience with? Because I think
Yeah.
those numbers are a great way to kind of like close it out.
Totally. No, I think I would say thanks everyone for participating, and for the questions. I think you all asked some things I did not cover, so thank you for that. That's helpful to clarify. Um, this is the thing that we're focused on. If WordPress is an important part of your business, either today or you're thinking about kind of like, we also work with some folks that are kind of traditionally have been more agencies, but are starting to build a hosting business. We work with some of those folks as well. Please reach out again. Send me an email. Fill out the form on our site just to book a demo and schedule a conversation. And happy to be that that resource for you. Yeah, again, thank you for spending the time with us and hearing about Extendify and our journey.
Thank you, audience. Thank you, Archer, so much. Thank you, Extendify. Very enlightening, really driving innovation in the WordPress space. And this has been another web hosting talk webinar. Thank you all for attending.
Thanks, everyone.